Hello. Hope you guys are doing well. This will never not be awkward. But it's fun, even though it's awkward. So, because it's kind of, I don't know. It's kind of been fun seeing, like, the views and stuff from the other videos I posted. And so I'm going to film another video while I drive around, and one of the boys just woke up, but the other one's still asleep. So we'll see how this goes. But I thought today I would talk about my birth story, because that's another thing that I was super curious about whenever I was pregnant. And I was specifically curious about people who were pregnant and gave birth to mono-di twins, how that played out and what happened. So I'm going to continue to drive just around, and then maybe he'll go back asleep. If not, we'll see what happens. But so like I said, my boys were mono-di twins, so they shared a placenta, but they had their own sacs. So it was considered high risk. I went to the OB every other week, and then started going weekly. I don't know, like maybe like later in the second trimester. I don't remember exactly, but then I went weekly for a little bit. And we were super blessed that I was healthy the whole time and they were healthy the whole time. So they wanted to check frequently for things like twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome, since they shared a placenta, like having an unequal amount of like blood and fluid volume between the babies, and things like that. And then for me, they wanted to make sure that I was not developing preeclampsia or like gestational diabetes, or just different things like that, just to make sure that I was healthy and they were healthy. And praise the Lord, everything was great the whole time. So we had scheduled an induction for 37 weeks. And that was pretty much the latest that they were going to allow me to go, was 37 weeks. And another little backstory is my hospital that I was going to deliver at with my OB did not have a NICU, which is super scary. So I alternated week on at the high-risk doctor with maternal fetal medicine that had a NICU on site with the hospital that they're affiliated with, and then my OB, who I had established a relationship with and loved, and like the hospital that she was affiliated with, and did the alternating when I went to every week between those two. And so the plan was, if it was past 36 weeks that I went into labor, then I would go to my OB that I've been seeing, and like the hospital that she is affiliated with. If it was prior to 36 weeks, then I would go to high risk with maternal fetal medicine. And I don't want to say it was like a gamble that we were taking, but we were paying attention to the health of the boys and the health of me to see whether we felt like we should deliver at a hospital that had a NICU on site. So if there was an issue when the babies were born and they had to be in the NICU, if the NICU was not on site, then they would have to transport them to Children's, and I would have been separated from my babies, and that would have been awful. But it was something that I felt a lot of peace about. Like, we felt peace that things were not going to trend in that direction. So we had scheduled an induction for 37 weeks because everything was looking great and healthy. And then when I was 35 weeks and 6 days, my water broke. So my baby A, he was head down. He said, we're coming out, and we're coming out today. So it was in the morning, and I, being a first-time mom, didn't realize, for a couple of days, I was exhausted, and I have been using the restroom frequently. And so the night before giving birth to the boys, I was up, just going to the bathroom, like honestly probably every hour. I wasn't sleeping anyways, but I went to the bathroom so much. And so I used the restroom, or felt like that was the biggest thing. I felt like I needed to go to the bathroom. And if you know, you know. But I didn't produce much. And so I had the same thing, felt like I needed to go to the bathroom, and then went and like crawled back into bed. And as soon as I laid on my side, it was like, and just a gush of fluid. And it was at 6:50 in the morning on the 12th. I remember it was 6:50 because like our bathroom is off of our bedroom, and I have a clock that sits on our like vanity countertop, and I like shot up and looked at it. I was like, honey, I think my water broke, and whatever, story for another time with that. He thought I peed. He sat back down like he was gonna lay back down. He was in shock. He needed a minute, which was funny. But I called, because mind you, I'm 35 weeks and 6 days, and 36 weeks is going to be the cutoff of deciding which like hospital to go to. So I called the OB's office, and I was like, oh, I got their answering thing, or like, if this is an emergency, press 1 or 0 or whatever it was, and was like, oh shoot, they don't open until 8. I guess I'll wait until 8 to call them, because it's not an emergency. And so I'm like cleaning up, and then I call my mom, and I tell her that my water broke, but that I was gonna call the office back at 8 and see what to do. That had an appointment later that day anyways, like in a couple hours, so it'll be fine. And she was like, Bridget, this is an emergency. This is what you press 1 for. And I was like, oh, okay. I don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't, clearly. So called back, and they're like, you know what, just come on in. And it'll be okay. So I got to delivery with my OB, who we loved. So I showered. We live about 30 minutes from the hospital. And we got over there, and we were checked into a room by 8:30. So mind you, my water broke at 6:50, and I showered. We finished packing everything and drove to the hospital and got there like that. And I was 2 centimeters when I got there, and they checked me. And I wanted to labor naturally for as long as possible. So they told me I had to have an epidural. So I couldn't give birth to the twins naturally. I had to have, or I'm medicated, I had to have an epidural. And I had to deliver in the OR because they needed enough space for 2 teams of nurses, for 2 OBs, because my OB was going to have somebody in there assisting her, and in case something went awry, in case something went awry with you, buddy, then I was already numbed up, and we were in the OB, or in the OR. So that was kind of their policy, or what my OB felt comfortable with. Baby A was head down, and baby B was breech. So she felt comfortable doing a breech extraction on baby B as long as baby A was head down. So that is kind of what the conversations and the plans were, because I wanted to experience contractions. I wasn't like, oh, I want to go all the way unmedicated. I mean, it'd be cool to, like, it's like an empowering experience, but I don't feel like my, like, womanhood rested on that. I know a lot of people put a lot of stake in that, and I didn't feel like that was like the end all be all of my birth experience. But I wanted to experience contractions and just see a little bit of what that was like, because I don't plan on this being my last pregnancy, Lord willing. Bless you, baby. And I would like to know what contractions feel like for the next time, when it's hopefully not twins, and I can have more of a normal, if there's even a normal birth experience. So we get in there, like 8:30, we're checked into the room. They checked me. I was 2 centimeters dilated, and they're getting me hooked up to the monitors. And so I had to have a monitor on both babies, and they were struggling to get a read on them. And so they needed me to stay still. And that's important because I didn't have an epidural, and they needed me on my back in like kind of a uncomfortable position to be able to read the baby's heart rate. And so it made it to where like there's a time that I was just breathing through the contractions, just feeling the wave of them. And I was like, oh, this is what this feels like. And then I just wanted to move so bad, because it was like putting a lot of pressure on my bottom and like centralizing the tightening and the pain, like pinching in my lower back, like bottom area. And so I told my nurse I really would like to move, and she was like, we'll monitor for a little bit and then we'll do the mile circuit. She was like, I'll get you go, and we're gonna get you in labor. And they also wanted to start Pitocin. And she said that she is the type of person that she gets people going, she gets people in labor. And so we did that. We started on the mile circuit, and she started Pitocin to see how my body would handle it. And then when it handled it fine and the babies handled it fine, she was like, let's up that sucker. So contractions start getting intense fast, and they needed me sitting back down to monitor them. And she told me, she was like, you need to get the epidural when you can like sit and stay still and handle it. And so I was like, I feel like I need the epidural. And I felt kind of defeated, because when they gave me the epidural, I was like still 2 or 3 centimeters, and I was like, what in the heck? Like, I surely thought my pain tolerance was higher than this. But they had an internal monitor on me, and while I was getting the epidural, she was looking at the strength of my contractions, like the intensity of my contractions, and she was like, those were intense contractions. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I just contract really intensely or whatnot. And so that happens, and it's like, oh gosh, it was either that I was at a 3 and it was 2 o'clock, or I was at a 2 and it was 3 o'clock. Something like that. And so at this point now, I've got the epidural. I'm just kind of chilling and talking. My family's all in the room. We kept the names to ourselves up until that point. I was going to wait until birth. But we were like, he was like, do you want to just tell him the names, babe? I mean, everybody who is important is in the room. So it was like immediate family. So it was the people, he wanted his mom to be in there to hear the name. And then I wanted like my mom, my brother, and my dad in the room to hear the names first before our extended family did. So we had both of the people that we really wanted. And so we did it, told them the names. We were all hanging out. And then I started to feel like some warmth down there. And it was like, I don't know if I'm peeing on myself or what. And my mom was standing at that part of the bed that was kind of on my side a little bit. And I asked her if she could check and see if I had used the bathroom on myself. And so she did, and she didn't tell me this much until afterwards, but apparently it really freaked her out because it was a lot of blood. And so she was like, we need the nurse. And so they go and they get the nurse, and she comes back in and she looks, she's like, oh yeah, that's normal, but let me check you. And she checked me, and I was 10 centimeters dilated. And she was like, okay, let me go ready the OR and get you ready. And so she scurries on out of the room, and at that point it's like whirlwind. So I dilated from, I think it was a 2 to a 10 in 3 hours, or it was a 3 to a 10 in 2 hours. No, I'm pretty positive it was a 2 to a 10 in 3 hours, which is pretty fast from my understanding. I mean, I haven't done this before, but pretty fast. And the fact that those contractions were hurting kind of made sense. They were intense and they were getting me there really quickly. So she goes, she readies the OR, and we go in there. They were only going to allow one other person in there with me, and I was like, could my mom pretty please come in there? And I said this previously to my OB, and she was like, I mean, if there's enough space, I don't care. And I said to the nurse, we loved that nurse that day that kicked me into labor. I said to her, I was like, my OB doesn't care if my mom's in there. And she was like, we'll see. She was like, I'll see what I can do. And my mom's pretty petite too, so we were like, she won't take up any space, she'll be quiet, it'll be fine. So she got to be in there too, which is really sweet. And we go back there, and I didn't have like my phone on me, my Apple Watch, so I didn't really know the time. It was my mom who said that we got back there a little bit before 6 p.m. and I pushed baby A out. He came out head down vaginally, pushed him out at 6:17. So apparently pushed pretty quick. And so baby A comes out. Okay, I'm back. It's, honestly, probably a couple months, maybe 2 months, month and a half, I don't know, later. Oh, he just woke up. Okay, well, we'll see if I'm gonna finish the story. I'm pretty sure I ended with talking about like baby A being born. And so I'll just jump right in, pick right back up there. So baby A was born, and it was the best thing in the entire world. I mean, just he was born totally like, maybe once we get moving he'll be okay. He needs a nap. But baby A was born. He was able to be born head down vaginally, and they put him on my chest. Like, everything was great. We only got to do the delayed cord clamping or whatever for a minute because they needed to then take him and work on getting baby B out. And they said a minute was standard protocol, so we couldn't do any longer. I mean, which was fine. But definitely inquire about that if you are wanting to do delayed cord clamping, or like if that's something that you're thinking of. See what their policy is on it with twins. And so then they started working on getting baby B out. And I mean, whenever baby A was born and they took it from me, like, it was one of those things where I was just like, no, my baby, like, he's taking my baby away. But it ended up being, honestly, for the best. I had something to look over and focus on. He was born at 6:17. So then baby B was breech, and my OB was totally confident in doing a breech extraction. And so she started working on him, getting him out, and it got to the point where it started getting, like, the mood started to change in the room. Things started to get a little bit more serious. And now I wasn't as clued into that in the moment. It was more so, like, my mom was in the room with us. It was more so whenever I was, like, looking back at pictures then and things like that. You can see, like, the nurse's face change. You can see my OB's face go, like, to pure determination. She went into that, I know what I'm doing, like, I've been trained for this mode. And there was a second OB in the room. You could kind of see her face. She was, like, really, really determined. She was, like, pushing on my stomach, trying to help get baby B out from, like, my stomach. And turns out that they were having a hard time because his arm was, like, up, lodged behind his head. and was making it to where he wouldn't move down through the birth canal. Which makes sense because he was up in my ribs to the point where the last several scans that they did on him, they were like pushing hard on my ribs. They were having trouble seeing him. So he was lodged up in there. But it was becoming more of a fairly serious moment. But 6 minutes later, at 6:23, he was born, and they took him out and put him on my chest, and then immediately took him away. He was like purplish white, and he was not breathing. His APGAR score was a 1, if you know anything about that. And so didn't get to do any of the delayed cord clamping. My fiance didn't get to cut the cord for him. They just immediately took him away and put him over like in the warmer thing and started working on him. And a team of nurses kind of like enclosed around, so I couldn't see much of what was going on, but as they were moving, you could see them with the oxygen mask on him, with like that bulbous thing that they squeeze for the air, doing that, and really working on him. And it was very terrifying. I mean, absolutely the scariest moment. We went from the highest high with baby A being born to that like really low dip with baby B being born. And it was actually the anesthesiologist behind me was the first one who let me know that he started breathing on his own. Because he didn't like start breathing on his own and then instantly cry out. Like it took him a minute. But then, praise the Lord, at the 5-minute mark, his APGAR score was an 8. I mean, just my absolute little miracle baby. Just crazy. Just amazing. So we are very, very blessed and very lucky. Neither baby. Sorry if you heard that. I promise I'm not a bad driver. There was something in the road that kind of like swerved, and I didn't realize that it would make it so loud, or I would have gone like the other way and straddled it that way. But anyways, I don't even know what I was saying. What was I saying? Oh, they didn't have to have any NICU time. They were super healthy. I mean, we are very, very blessed. And so I'm sure I missed a lot, especially because I like filmed that first part of the video and then had to stop because the babies woke up, and then picked it back up. And so I'm sure there's a lot of gaps. And so if there are any questions, you can ask and I will tell. But also I share this because I was curious about people's birth stories, specifically with Modi twins. And then once I found out that baby B would more than likely be a breech distraction, I wanted to hear people's stories with that as well. And the only reason that he was down for a little bit and born not breathing was because his arm was up behind him. And yeah, they tested his cord blood, and I can't remember exactly, like for gases in his cord blood. They didn't explain it super well, or maybe they did, and I was just freshly postpartum with twin infants. That's probably what it was, and didn't retain a lot of the information. But there was either gas in his cord blood or not gas, something with the gas in his cord blood that let them know that he wasn't down for very long. Yeah. But I say all that to say, if you are wanting to have a vaginal delivery with your babies, and you have an OB who's saying, no, twins have to be C-section, or no, one of your babies is breech, you have to do C-section, or you have to do it this way. Not necessarily true. However, if your doctor is not comfortable with a birth that way, then I wouldn't push it. I would stick with something that they're comfortable with. Or if you are early enough along and having these conversations and your doctor saying, well, if that happens, we would do a C-section, point blank, in the story, and that's not what you want, I would consider looking around if you can, to find another OB that can and feels confident in aligning with what you want, because there's a lot that is taken from us as twin moms. There's a lot of those typical birth experiences and nursing experiences. There's a lot of those things that just don't look the way that you thought they were going to when you were trying to get pregnant or found out that you were pregnant. And so definitely advocate for what you want. And if you have a doctor who's saying absolutely not, it could be because of their level of experience and comfortability with something, because everybody's trained differently, and that's not a bad thing. It's just how it is. And so kind of think about these different scenarios, how you want them to play out, and ask your doctor about them. And if they're not comfortable, if they are automatically wanting to do a C-section no matter what, and that's not what you're wanting, see if there's another option. Because it is important to have a little bit of a voice in your birth story, but still be able to trust the medical team that you are with, so that if things happen last minute, they know your preferences, you know what they're comfortable with, so you know that if they make a decision that's against what you are wanting, it's because it was the best thing to happen medically. Yeah. So that's kind of another part of the reason why I share this story, just to say, don't feel like bad advocating for yourself. It's just the start of a lot of things that you're gonna have to advocate for, because you are now gonna have kiddos and you are the voice for them. So but yeah, that being said, I can't believe I made it through that, and hopefully it won't take me another 2 months to put these pieces of the story together and get them uploaded. It probably will, but we'll see. And if there's things that I missed, which I'm sure there are, that are like big gaps or questions, then let me know, because I would love to, I don't know, have a little twin mom community. I think that'd be fun, because it's definitely a different experience than everybody I know with singletons. So I hope that you enjoyed, and I don't know how to end a video, but yeah, that's that. Bye.